Jiwoo sat in the back corner of the classroom, her pen moving steadily across her notebook. She didn't look up when the other students filed in, their voices mixing into a strange chorus of sounds. Some chirped, some growled, some made noises she couldn't even describe. The classroom at Galactic Coalition Academy was never quiet before Professor Yara arrived. She had been at the station for 3 months now. 3 months of classes with creatures from 20 different worlds. 3 months of watching, listening, and staying quiet. Taemin entered the room and waved at her. He was one of the few other humans in their xenobiology class. She nodded back, a tiny movement that most people would miss. Taemin smiled anyway and took his usual seat 3 rows ahead. He had stopped trying to sit next to her after the first week. The large students came in next. Velthar led his group, his scales gleaming under the classroom lights. He was from a reptilian species that dominated their homeworld's food chain. Everything about him said predator. The way he walked, the way his eyes tracked movement, the way other students moved aside when he passed. Velthar's group always took the center seats, the best spots with the clearest view of the professor's display screen. They never asked if the seats were taken. They just sat, and everyone accepted it. But today a new student entered the room. He was massive, covered in thick fur, with claws that scraped the floor when he walked. He looked around for an empty seat, his small eyes scanning the room. Most seats were already taken. He saw the empty seats around Jiwoo. 5 empty seats in every direction. The new student started walking toward her. Jiwoo didn't move. She kept writing in her notebook, her handwriting neat and small, but something changed in the room. Several students turned to watch. Taemin sat up straighter. The new student took 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps toward the empty seats. Then he stopped. His large body froze mid-stride. His nostrils flared as he breathed deeply. He stood there for a moment, confused by his own hesitation. Then he turned and found a seat on the other side of the room, squeezing into a space that was too small for his bulk. Taemin watched this happen and frowned. He had seen this before, many times. Students would head toward those empty seats around Jiwoo, then change their minds. They always changed their minds. Professor Yara glided into the room on her long bird-like legs. Her feathers were a deep blue today, which meant she was in a good mood. The class fell silent. "Good morning," she said, her voice a pleasant trill. "Today we will discuss group dynamics in mixed species environments. Appropriate timing, as I'm assigning your midterm project." A collective groan rose from the students. Projects meant working together. Working together meant dealing with species that thought differently, communicated differently, and often didn't trust each other. "You'll be studying predator-prey relationships in artificial ecosystems," Professor Yara continued. "I've already made the groups. They're posted on your tablets." Jiwoo checked her tablet. Group 7. She read the names: Velthar, Quinn, Danfer, Rella, and herself. Velthar was the reptilian predator. Quinn was an insectoid with a hive mind connection. Danfer and Rella were both from herbivore species, small and cautious. It was a typical mix: 1 human, 1 major predator, 1 collective intelligence, and 2 prey species. She looked across the room. Velthar was staring at his tablet, his face unreadable, but his tail moved in a slow pattern that she recognized. Agitation. After class, the groups gathered to plan their first meeting. Jiwoo packed her notebook and stood. As always, she waited for the rush of students to leave first. She didn't like crowds. Taemin appeared beside her. "Hey, you got stuck with Velthar," he said quietly. "You okay with that?" Jiwoo nodded. 1 small movement. "He's not exactly friendly," Taemin continued. "Last semester, he made 3 students transfer out of his group." Jiwoo slung her bag over her shoulder. "It will be fine," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "If you need help, let me know," Taemin said. He always offered help. She appreciated it, even if she never accepted. Outside the classroom, Velthar was waiting with the rest of Group 7. Quinn stood perfectly still, her multiple eyes watching everything at once. Danfer and Rella stayed close together, their body language screaming nervousness. Velthar saw Jiwoo approach and something flickered across his face. He took a small step back, then seemed annoyed with himself for doing it. "We meet tomorrow," Velthar announced. "Sector 7, Room 12. 1800 hours, it wasn't a suggestion." The prey species nodded quickly. Quinn tilted her head in agreement. Jiwoo met Velthar's eyes. "Okay," she said simply. Velthar held her gaze for exactly 2 seconds, then looked away. His tail twitched again. The group dispersed. Jiwoo walked toward the residential section of the station. The corridors were wide and bright, designed to accommodate hundreds of different species. She passed a group of gas breathers in their environment suits, some aquatic students in mobile water tanks, and a family of crystalline beings that chimed when they moved. Her room was small but comfortable. All human quarters were similar. A bed, a desk, a small bathroom, and a window showing the stars outside. She set her bag down and sat at the desk. On her wall was a single photograph. It showed a much younger Jiwoo standing next to a tall man in military uniform. Her brother Hyun. He worked as a security officer on the station. She saw him once a week for dinner, and he always asked the same questions. Was she eating enough? Was anyone bothering her? Was she making friends? She never told him about the empty seats around her, or the way predator species avoided her, or how she could walk through the most dangerous sections of the station at night without anyone approaching her. He worried enough already. Jiwoo opened her notebook and began reviewing her notes. Predator-prey relationships, group dynamics, territorial behavior. She knew these subjects better than the textbook did, better than Professor Yara probably realized. The next day, Jiwoo arrived at Sector 7 exactly on time. The sector was known for being rough. More predator species lived here, and the environmental controls were set to warmer temperatures that they preferred. Room 12 was a standard meeting space, a round table with chairs of various sizes. Velthar was already there, sitting at what was clearly meant to be the head position. Quinn arrived next, then the two prey species staying close to each other. Jiwoo entered last. She chose a seat that put distance between herself and the others, not isolating herself but not crowding them either. Exactly 12 feet from Velthar. Velthar noticed. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. "We need to divide the work," Quinn said. Her voice had a strange quality, like multiple people speaking in unison. "The project requires field observation, data analysis, and a final presentation." "I'll do the field work," Velthar said immediately. "Predator observation requires a predator." "I can handle data analysis," Quinn offered. "My hive mind can process large amounts of information quickly." Danfer and Rella volunteered for research and presentation design. Everyone looked at Jiwoo. "I'll assist with everything," she said quietly. "Whatever is needed," Velthar snorted. "That's not dividing the work." "Pick something." Jiwoo met his eyes again. "I'll observe the observers," she said. "Study how each of you approaches the project." "That's also data." Something about her answer made Velthar uncomfortable. He shifted in his seat, his chair scraping against the floor. "Fine, whatever." They spent the next hour planning. Jiwoo spoke rarely, only when asked direct questions. But when she did speak, her insights were sharp. She predicted behavior patterns that Velthar found disturbing in their accuracy. As the meeting ended, Velthar stood quickly, eager to leave. But he paused at the door and looked back at Jiwoo, who was calmly packing her tablet. "You're strange," he said. "For a human." Jiwoo looked up at him. "How many humans do you know?" Velthar thought about it. 3. You're the strangest." Jiwoo almost smiled. "Almost." "Okay," she said. After he left, Quinn lingered. Her compound eyes studied Jiwoo with an intensity that would make most people uncomfortable. "You're not afraid," Quinn observed. "Why?" Jiwoo finished packing. "Should I be?" Most species find Velthar intimidating, most humans especially. Jiwoo stood and walked toward the door. As she passed Quinn, she said something so quietly that only the insectoid's sensitive hearing caught it. "Fear is a choice." Then she was gone, leaving Quinn alone in the room, processing those 3 words through her connected mind, sharing the puzzle with her distant hive. The project was not going well. Velthar kept changing his mind about which ecosystem to study. Danfer and Rella were too nervous to disagree with him. Quinn remained neutral, processing everything without offering opinions, and Jiwoo simply watched. They met 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time, Velthar tried to sit in different positions around the table. He would start on one side, seem uncomfortable, and move to another seat. He never sat closer than 12 feet from Jiwoo. He never sat farther than 15 feet either. Taemin noticed this pattern. He started paying attention to other interactions around the station. In the cafeteria, predator species would change their path if it brought them too close to Jiwoo. In the hallways, they would slow down or speed up to maintain distance. Even the aggressive ones, the ones who challenged everyone, gave her space. It made no sense. Jiwoo was small for a human. She never raised her voice. She never threatened anyone. She just existed quietly, and somehow that existence created an invisible boundary that no predator crossed. One evening, Taemin decided to ask someone who might have answers. He found Hyun finishing his security shift near the residential sector. "Excuse me," Taemin said. "Officer Hyun? Can I talk to you about your sister?" Hyun turned, his hand instinctively moving toward his security baton. Then he relaxed, recognizing Taemin from Jiwoo's descriptions. "You're in her xenobiology class." "Yes, I'm Taemin." He hesitated. "Is Jiwoo okay? I mean, is there something I should know?" "About her?" Hyun's expression became guarded. "Why do you ask?" "Because everyone avoids her. Not in a mean way. But the predator species, they stay back. Always the same distance. I'm worried that something happened to her or that people know something I don't." Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. Jiwoo had a different upbringing than most people. She was trained for situations that most humans never face. Trained? Like military training? Something like that. Hyun wouldn't say more. "She's fine, Taemin. She can take care of herself better than anyone I know. Don't worry about her," but Taemin did worry. He started researching human psychology, predator behavior, and instinctive responses. The more he learned, the more confused he became. Meanwhile, Group 7's project continued. They finally agreed to study a small ecosystem in the station's biolab, a controlled environment with both predator and prey species from various worlds. The biolab was in Sector 3, a research area with high security. Professor Yara arranged access for the student groups. They were scheduled for observation time 3 days a week. On their first day in the biolab, Jiwoo stood in front of the large containment window. Inside, a miniature forest thrived with creatures big and small. A red-furred predator stalked through the undergrowth. Small flying creatures darted between trees. Something large moved in the artificial stream. "Fascinating," Quinn said, standing beside Jiwoo. "The predator hunts every 6 hours." "Very regular." Jiwoo nodded, making notes on her tablet. Velthar watched from a distance. His focus supposedly on the ecosystem, but his attention kept drifting to the human. "Why do you stand so still?" Velthar asked suddenly. Jiwoo didn't turn. "I'm observing. Everyone else moves. Takes different angles. You just stand there." "Movement disturbs observation," Jiwoo said simply. "The creatures react to motion even through the glass. If I stay still, I see their natural behavior." Velthar grunted. He didn't like the answer, but he couldn't argue with it. 2 hours into their observation, alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the biolab. An automated voice announced, "Containment breach in Section C. All personnel evacuate immediately." Security locked down in 30 seconds. Students began running for the exits. Velthar's group was in Section B, close to the breach. The door to their observation room slammed shut as the lockdown engaged. They were trapped. "What's happening?" Rella squeaked, her small body trembling. "Containment breach means something escaped," Quinn said calmly, though her antennae were moving rapidly. "Something dangerous." Through the reinforced window of their locked door, they could see the corridor. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Then something moved in that red darkness. Something large. Velthar pressed against the window. His predator eyes were better in low light. "By the ancestors," he whispered. "That's a Specimen 7. "What's a Specimen 7? Danfor asked, his voice shaking. "A bioengineered predator," Velthar explained, unable to hide his own fear. "They made it in the lab. Combined traits from 12 different apex species. It's designed to be the perfect hunter." The creature moved closer to their door. It was massive, with 6 legs and a head that seemed too large for its body. Its eyes glowed in the darkness, multiple sets of them scanning for prey. Inside the room, panic spread like fire. Rella started crying. Danfor backed into a corner. Even Quinn's usual calm cracked, her body trembling slightly. Velthar's scales shifted color, an involuntary fear response his species couldn't control. His claws extended. "It hunts by sensing fear," he said. "It can smell it, hear your heartbeat, read your body heat. And this room is full of fear." The creature stopped directly outside their door, its multiple eyes fixed on the window. It could see them. It knew they were trapped. Jiwoo stood up from her seat. Everyone turned to look at her. She walked toward the door with steady, measured steps. Not slow, not fast. Just steady. What are you doing? Velthar hissed. Get back! If it sees you, it already sees me, Jiwoo said quietly. She reached the window and placed one hand flat against the reinforced glass. The creature's eyes focused on her. All of them. Every glowing set locked onto the small human female standing in the window. The room fell silent except for Rella's muffled crying. Everyone watched as Predator and human stared at each other through the glass. Seconds passed. Then a full minute. The creature didn't move. Jiwoo didn't move. Velthar watched in disbelief. His own instincts were screaming at him to hide, to fight, to do something. But the human just stood there, her hand on the glass, her face calm, not frozen in terror, not paralyzed, just calm. The creature tilted its massive head. Its nostrils flared. It took one step closer to the door, then stopped. Its eyes narrowed. Then it did something no one expected. It backed away. Slowly, carefully, the bioengineered apex predator retreated down the corridor, away from the door, away from Jiwoo. Within minutes, security teams arrived. The creature was sedated and returned to its containment. The lockdown lifted, but inside the observation room no one spoke. Velthar stared at Jiwoo with an expression she couldn't read. Quinn's antennae were perfectly still, something that never happened. Danfer and Rella huddled together looking at Jiwoo like she was the dangerous creature. How did you do that? Velthar finally asked. Jiwoo removed her hand from the glass. I didn't do anything. That's exactly my point. Velthar's voice rose. You stood there and did nothing, and that thing ran away from you. Why? Jiwoo picked up her tablet. Maybe it wasn't hungry. That's not... Velthar stopped himself. He took a deep breath, his scales slowly returning to their normal color. You know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to understand. I just want to finish this project and never have to work with you again. He left the room quickly. Danfer and Rella followed him, eager to escape. Only Quinn remained. She approached Jiwoo slowly, cautiously. I am connected to a hive mind, she said. I sense emotions from other beings. It helps my hive understand non-hive species. Jiwoo waited, listening. When I sense you, Quinn continued, I feel nothing, not emptiness, not absence, but something compressed, like a star before it collapses. All that energy pressed into something so small and dense that it creates a void around it. Is that bad? Jiwoo asked. Quinn's answer was simple and honest. It's terrifying. Later that night, Taemin found Jiwoo in the cafeteria. She sat alone, eating a simple meal. He sat down across from her, not bothering to ask permission. I heard about the incident in the biolab, he said. Are you okay? I'm fine. Velthar is telling everyone that you scared off a specimen 7 by just looking at it. Jiwoo continued eating. That's not accurate. Then what happened? She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, it recognized something. That's all. Recognized what? Jiwoo looked up at him, her dark eyes reflecting the cafeteria lights. That I wasn't prey. Taemin wanted to ask more questions. He wanted to understand. But something in Jiwoo's expression told him to let it go. Some answers, he realized, were more frightening than the questions. Across the station in the security office, Hyun reviewed the incident report. He watched the video footage of Jiwoo standing at the window, facing down the escaped predator. He saw the creature back away. He was not surprised. He had seen his sister do impossible things before. Things that made other humans uncomfortable. Things that made predators recognize her as something other than prey. He filed the report and added a note. Human student Jiwoo showed appropriate calm during emergency situation. No injuries. No intervention required. Recommend commendation for composure under stress. He didn't mention what he really thought, that his little sister was exactly what their father had trained her to be. A human who could survive anywhere with anyone by being perfectly, absolutely in control. The incident in the biolab spread through the student population like wildfire. Stories grew with each telling. By the end of the week, some students claimed Jiwoo had fought the creature barehanded. Others said she used some kind of human telepathy. The truth was less dramatic, but somehow more unsettling to those who witnessed it. Velthar stopped coming to group meetings. He sent his portions of the project through the station's network instead. Professor Yara noticed and called him to her office. Your group needs you present, she said, her blue feathers ruffled with disapproval. This is a collaborative project. I'm collaborating, Velthar argued. Just remotely. Why the sudden change? You've worked with humans before? Velthar's tail twitched. This one is different. Professor Yara tilted her head, her avian eyes studying him. She had taught for many years and understood her students better than they knew. Different how? I don't know, Velthar admitted. That's the problem. But avoidance couldn't last forever. The project required a final presentation, and Professor Yara insisted all group members participate in person. Group 7 gathered in their usual meeting room 1 week before the presentation was due. The tension was thick. Danfer and Rella sat as far from Jiwoo as the room allowed. Quinn maintained her usual neutral position, but her antennae moved constantly, processing the uncomfortable atmosphere. Velthar arrived last and stood near the door, ready to leave quickly. We need to practice the presentation, Quinn said. Each person has a section to deliver. They spent 2 hours reviewing their work. The project was actually quite good. Jiwoo's observations had been particularly insightful, noting behavior patterns that the others missed. But every time she spoke, Velthar tensed. Finally, he couldn't contain himself anymore. Why aren't you afraid? He demanded. Jiwoo looked at him calmly. Of what? Of me. Of anything. That creature in the lab could have broken through the door. You stood right in front of it. You didn't even flinch. Flinching wouldn't have helped, Jiwoo said simply. That's not an answer. Velthar's scales shifted to an angry red. Every prey species fears predators. It's natural. It's survival. Even other predators respect each other's danger. But you act like nothing can touch you. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm not prey. I'm not predator. I'm just human. Humans are prey. Velthar snapped. You're small, weak, no claws, no venom, no armor. On my world, humans would be hunted. Jiwoo met his eyes. But we're not on your world. And humans weren't hunted on ours. We were the hunters. Something in her voice made Velthar go very still. What do you mean? Humans are persistence predators, Jiwoo explained in that same quiet, steady voice. We don't have claws or venom, but we have something else. We don't stop. If we're hunting, we follow until the prey collapses from exhaustion, days if necessary. We outlast everything. Velthar's scales slowly turned pale, a fear response, and we're pack hunters, Jiwoo continued. We coordinate silently. We plan, we adapt. On Earth, humans brought down creatures 10 times our size by working together and never giving up. Quinn spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. I researched human history after the biolab incident. Humans are the only species in the Galactic Coalition that evolved as both persistence predators and social pack hunters. Lots of species hunt in packs, Velthar protested. Not like humans, Quinn said. Humans can throw weapons accurately while running. Humans can function on minimal rest. Humans can eat almost anything to survive. And most importantly, humans can override their survival instincts. Your species runs from fire. Humans run into it to save their pack. The room fell silent. Danfer and Rella looked terrified. Velthar seemed caught between anger and something else. Fear, maybe, or respect. But you're not hunting us, Danfer whispered. Humans joined the coalition peacefully, because we chose to, Jiwoo said. That's what makes humans different. We can choose to compress our nature, to hold it back, to coexist. Is that what you're doing? Velthar asked. Compressing? Jiwoo didn't answer. She just returned to reviewing the presentation notes. After the meeting, Velthar didn't go back to his quarters. Instead, he went to the station's information center. He accessed Earth's historical database, something he should have done months ago. What he found made his blood run cold. Humans had hunted mammoths to extinction, creatures that weighed tons with massive tusks and thick hide. Humans killed them with primitive weapons and patience. Humans had domesticated wolves, turning apex predators into loyal companions. How does a prey species do that? Humans had survived ice ages, droughts, plagues, and wars. They spread across their entire planet, adapting to every climate from frozen tundra to scorching deserts, and in their wars, Velthar read accounts that seemed impossible. Humans fighting with broken bones. Humans refusing to surrender even when defeat was certain. Humans walking through enemy fire to reach their objectives. There was a term for it: persistence, determination, stubbornness, the inability to quit even when quitting was the rational choice. Velthar found himself researching Jiwoo specifically. Her records were partially classified, which was unusual for a student. What wasn't classified showed she grew up in a specialized training facility on Earth. The facility's purpose was listed as extreme environment preparation. He dug deeper, using his ambassador connections. What he found made him immediately file a diplomatic request. He wanted written permission to never be placed in close quarters with Jiwoo again. The request was denied with a note. Student Jiwoo has shown no aggressive behavior. Your concerns are noted but unsubstantiated. The note missed the point entirely. It wasn't her aggression that worried him. It was her control. The presentation day arrived. Group 7 stood before Professor Yara and the class, taking turns explaining their findings. Belthar spoke about predator hunting patterns. Quinn discussed data analysis methods. Danfer and Rella covered prey defense mechanisms. Then it was Jiwoo's turn. She stepped forward, her movements calm and measured. Our study showed that predator-prey relationships are not simple, she began. They're based on recognition. Prey animals don't just fear all predators. They fear specific behaviors and signals. A lion that just ate is less dangerous than a hungry lion. Prey animals know the difference. She advanced the presentation display. Similarly, predators recognize other predators. They assess threats based on instinct, size, weapons, behavior patterns. But most importantly, they recognize nature, what something fundamentally is. Her eyes scanned the classroom. Several predator species shifted uncomfortably. The most dangerous predator is not the biggest or the strongest. It's the one that can't be read. The one that gives no signals. The one that could be hungry or satisfied, aggressive or peaceful. The unknown predator is the most feared. She returned to her seat. The classroom was absolutely silent. Professor Yara blinked her large eyes. Fascinating conclusion, Jiwoo, though perhaps a bit philosophical for a biology presentation. It's based on observation, Jiwoo said quietly. The presentations continued, but many students kept glancing at Jiwoo. After class, a small crowd formed around her. Not close, never close, but a ring of students at that familiar distance. A student named Kai approached. She was from an amphibious species known for their empathic abilities. Can I ask you something personal? She said to Jiwoo. Okay. I sense emotions from everyone around me. Fear, joy, anger, curiosity. It's how my species communicates. Kai's webbed hands twisted nervously. But when I try to sense you, I get nothing. Not emptiness. More like pressure, like trying to sense something on the other side of a closed door. Maybe I'm just boring, Jiwoo suggested. No, Kai said firmly. You're not boring. You're compressed. Everything you feel, everything you are. You've learned to contain it completely. Why? Jiwoo picked up her bag. Because in a galaxy full of people who can read emotions, sense fear, and smell moods, what do you do if you can't hide? You become unreadable, Kai whispered. You give them nothing, Jiwoo agreed. You become the unknown, and everyone fears the unknown. She left the classroom. Students parted to let her pass, maintaining that invisible 12-foot boundary. Taemin watched her go and then followed, catching up in the corridor. That was intense, he said. Jiwoo kept walking. The presentation? Everything. Jiwoo, can I ask you something? She stopped and turned to face him. Yes, are you lonely? Always being at a distance from everyone? For the first time since Taemin had known her, Jiwoo's expression changed. Just slightly. Just for a moment. Something that might have been sadness sometimes, she admitted. But it's necessary. Why is it necessary? Because if I let people close really close, they'd understand what I am. What all humans are under the surface. And that would frighten them more than distance ever could. She started walking again. Taemin stood in the corridor watching her leave. Around him, other students gave her space. Always that same distance. That same invisible boundary. And for the first time, Taemin understood. It wasn't that predators feared Jiwoo. It was that they recognized her. On an instinctive level, they knew what she represented. Another apex. Another species that refused to quit, refused to surrender, refused to accept defeat. The 12 feet wasn't protection for Jiwoo. It was protection for everyone else. 3 days after the presentation, official inquiries began. Ambassador Reth, the reptilian diplomat sponsoring Velthar's education, filed a formal request for information about human students, specifically about their training and psychological profiles. The request was unusual but not unprecedented. When humanity joined the Galactic Coalition, there had been concerns. Humans came from a death world, a planet with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and constant environmental challenges. Other species worried about how humans would integrate. Most of those worries faded as humans proved friendly, cooperative, and eager to learn. They worked hard, made friends across species lines, and showed remarkable adaptability. Within a generation, humans were accepted members of the coalition. But occasional incidents reminded everyone that humans were different. And the biolab incident had triggered new concerns. The Galactic Coalition's Office of Student Affairs sent an investigator to Station Kepler 442, council member. Thex was a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline matrix. They had no emotion, no bias, only logic, perfect for investigating sensitive matters. Thex interviewed students from various species. Most confirmed the same story. Humans were pleasant classmates, helpful and hardworking. But there was one human, a female named Ji-Woo, who made predator species uncomfortable. Describe this discomfort, Thex asked Velthar. Velthar struggled to find words. It's instinctive, like standing near a cliff edge in the dark. You can't see the danger, but every part of you knows it's there. Has she threatened you? Never. Has she acted aggressively? No. Then what is the concern? Velthar's scales shifted through colors as he tried to explain. It's what she doesn't do. She doesn't show fear. She doesn't show aggression. She doesn't show anything. She's like a sealed container. You don't know what's inside, and that's terrifying. Thex interviewed Quinn next. The insectoid was more analytical. My hive has consensus, she reported. Ji-Woo represents a phenomenon we've never encountered. Absolute emotional control combined with predator nature. My hive believes she was trained specifically for interspecies contact. Trained by whom? Unknown. But the training is extensive. No being achieves that level of control naturally. Thex accessed Ji-Woo's records. The basics were normal. Born on Earth, raised in Southeast Asian sector, enrolled in the Coalition Student Exchange Program. But several files were classified above Thex's clearance level. That was highly unusual for a student. The investigator requested access from Earth's government. The request was denied with a polite note. Student records contain personal information protected by privacy laws. No evidence of wrongdoing to justify release. Thex interviewed Ji-Woo directly. They met in a neutral conference room. Just the crystalline being and the quiet human. You understand why I'm here? Thex asked. Yes, Ji-Woo said. Students are afraid of me. Does that concern you? Yes. Why? Ji-Woo was quiet for a moment. Because I don't want to frighten anyone. I'm here to learn and coexist peacefully. Yet your presence disturbs predator species specifically. Why do you think that is? Because predators have good instincts, Ji-Woo said simply. They recognize other predators. Are you a predator? I'm human. That's not an answer. Yes, it is, Ji-Woo said calmly. Humans are what we are. We evolved on Earth as hunters. But we also evolved as social creatures capable of cooperation. Both things are true. Thex's crystalline form pulsed with thought. Your training. Where did you receive it? I grew up in a facility that prepared humans for off-world contact. We learned to interact with various species types to understand their communication methods and instincts. This training included emotional suppression? Not suppression, control. There's a difference. Explain the difference. Ji-Woo leaned forward slightly. Suppression is pushing emotions down, hiding them. Control is understanding them, feeling them, but choosing when and how to express them. I feel fear. I feel anger. I feel joy. I just don't broadcast these feelings to people who can sense them without consent. Thex processed this. You consider emotional broadcasting a privacy violation? Don't you? If someone could read your thoughts without permission, wouldn't you consider that invasive? The crystalline being had no answer. The logic was sound. Meanwhile, Taman was doing his own investigation. He contacted other humans on the station, asking if they knew about Ji-Woo's background. Most didn't. She kept to herself. Then he found Sora. She was a human student in the engineering program who had grown up in the same region as Ji-Woo. They weren't close friends, but they knew of each other. Ji-Woo is from the preparation program, Sora explained over video call. It's not secret, but it's not widely advertised either. After first contact with aliens, Earth's government created training facilities for humans who would work in interspecies environments. What kind of training? Everything. Language, culture, biology, psychology, but also survival skills. how to read alien body language, how to control your own body language, how to exist in spaces where being human might be a disadvantage. That sounds intense. Sora nodded. It is. My cousin went through the program. She said the hardest part wasn't learning about aliens. It was learning about yourself, about what humans are capable of when trained properly. What are we capable of? Sora's expression became serious. Anything. That's the scary part. Humans can adapt to anything, survive anything, overcome anything if we refuse to quit. The preparation program teaches you to harness that, to control it, to use it when necessary and suppress it when not. Taemin thanked her and ended the call. He felt like he understood Jiwoo better now, but that understanding brought new questions. He decided to visit someone who might have more answers. He found Hyun at the security office during his break. Can we talk? Taemin asked. About Jiwoo? Hyun sighed. Everyone wants to talk about Jiwoo lately. The investigator interviewed her yesterday. I'm worried about what happens if they decide she's dangerous. She's not dangerous, Hyun said firmly. I know that. But will they understand? Will they see her control as a good thing or a threat? Hyun was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision. Come with me. He led Taemin to a private office and closed the door. From a secure drawer, he pulled out a data pad. This is Jiwoo's full record. I'm not supposed to show anyone, but you're her friend. You deserve to understand. Taemin read through the files. What he found was remarkable. Jiwoo had trained from age 5 in the preparation program. Not just her, but her entire generation of recruits. Earth's government knew that sending humans into a galaxy full of telepaths, empaths, and predators would require special preparation. The program taught extreme emotional control, multi-species psychology, advanced survival skills, and something called apex awareness, the ability to recognize and respect other apex predators while maintaining your own position. But the most interesting part was a psychological evaluation from when Jiwoo was 15. The evaluator wrote, Subject shows remarkable ability to compartmentalize human predator instincts while maintaining ethical framework. Recommended for diplomatic or educational roles. Warning. Subject's control may be misinterpreted as emotional absence. Ensure proper context provided to non-human contacts. They knew, Taemin said. They knew she would frighten people. They knew humans in general might frighten people, Hyun corrected. That's why the program exists. To prepare both humans and aliens for contact. Jiwoo is just better at it than most. What happens if the investigator recommends removing her from the program? Hyun's jaw tightened. Then I'll have to accept that decision. But I hope it doesn't come to that. Jiwoo loves learning here. She's happy, in her own way. The investigation concluded a week later. Thex issued a report to the Galactic Coalition. The summary was distributed to Academy staff and interested parties. The report's conclusion was unexpected. Subject Jiwoo represents an example of successful human integration training. Her behavior, while unusual, demonstrates conscious choice to maintain peaceful coexistence with predator species by providing them space to override instinctive responses. Recommend recognition of this approach as best practice for human-predator interaction. Professor Yara read the report and called Jiwoo to her office. You've been cleared of any wrongdoing, she said, though the report created quite a discussion among the faculty. I understand, Jiwoo said. Do you know what impressed the investigator most? No, your honesty. You could have hidden your nature, pretended to be something you're not. Instead, you acknowledged what you are and explained why you maintain distance. That takes courage, Jiwoo didn't respond. Professor Yara's feathers ruffled with amusement. I'm assigning a new project next semester. Group work again. I'm putting you with different students this time. Students who need to learn what you have to teach. What do I have to teach? That apex predators can coexist. That strength doesn't require dominance. That control is more powerful than aggression. Professor Yara tilted her head. You teach that every day just by being yourself. News of the investigation and its conclusions spread through the student population. Reactions were mixed. Some students remained uncomfortable around Jiwoo. Others gained new respect for her. Velthar was in the latter category. He approached Jiwoo in the cafeteria one evening. The semester ended with one final challenge. Professor Yara announced the last assignment during the final week of classes. Your ultimate project will test everything you've learned about interspecies cooperation and survival, she said. A week-long survival exercise on Moon 17. The classroom erupted in concerned chatter. Moon 17 was known for being hostile. Cold temperatures, dangerous terrain, and indigenous predators. It was used specifically to challenge students in controlled but difficult conditions. You'll work in your assigned groups, Professor Yara continued. Minimal supplies. No technology except emergency beacons. Your goal is to reach the extraction point 40 kilometers from your drop zone within 7 days. Jiwoo looked at her tablet. She was assigned to a new group this time. Group 12. Herself, Velthar, Quinn, and 2 new students she didn't know well. Also included was June, another human student known for being the complete opposite of Jiwoo. June was loud, friendly, and made friends with everyone easily. June waved at her from across the classroom, grinning. Hey, Jiwoo! Looks like we're teamed up. This will be fun. Fun wasn't the word Jiwoo would have chosen, but she nodded politely. The groups had 3 days to prepare. They gathered to discuss strategy. This time, Velthar sat at the 12-foot distance without hesitation. He had learned. Moon 17 is cold, Quinn stated. My species tolerates cold poorly. I will be slower than usual. My species prefers warmth too, Velthar admitted. But I can manage. The bigger problem is the indigenous predators. They hunt in packs. I've read about them, June said enthusiastically. 6-legged, excellent night vision, coordinate attacks. They're fascinating. Everyone stared at June's cheerful attitude. Velthar's tail twitched. You're excited about dangerous predators? Everything is fascinating if you study it, June said with a shrug. Besides, we have Jiwoo. She's basically a predator whisperer. That's not what I do, Jiwoo said quietly. Close enough, June laughed. Come on, this will be great. Team-building exercise, survival skills, beautiful alien moon. What could go wrong? As it turned out, many things could go wrong. Drop day arrived. The groups were transported to Moon 17 in separate shuttles and dropped in different zones. Group 12 landed in a rocky valley with steep cliffs on both sides. The temperature was already below freezing, and it would get colder at night. They had a basic supply pack, water filtration tablets, emergency rations for 3 days, a single thermal blanket, and emergency beacons that would summon rescue if activated, but using a beacon meant failing the assignment. Let's assess our situation, Quinn said, her voice steady despite the cold already affecting her. We need water, shelter, and a route to the extraction point. Velthar pulled out a basic map drawn on waterproof material. The extraction point is northeast. We're here, he pointed to their valley. If we follow the valley, it's the safest route but longest. If we go over the cliffs, it's shorter but much more dangerous. We follow the valley, Jiwoo said. It was the first time she had spoken since landing. That will take longer, Velthar argued. But everyone survives, Jiwoo replied. She was already moving, walking northeast along the valley floor. After a moment, the others followed. June caught up to her. You're in your element here, aren't you? Jiwoo glanced at him. What do you mean? This kind of challenge. Survival stuff. You move like you've done this 1,000 times. I have, Jiwoo admitted. Different moons, different conditions. But the principles are the same. The first day was manageable. They found a stream for water. Jiwoo identified which plants were safe to supplement their rations. As night approached, they built a shelter using rocks and the thermal blanket. How do you know which plants are safe? One of the new students asked. Process of elimination and biology, Jiwoo explained. I know which chemical compounds are toxic to each species. I look for plants that don't contain those compounds. That's incredibly complex, Quinn observed. It's necessary, Jiwoo said simply. The temperature dropped rapidly after sunset. They huddled together in the shelter, sharing body heat. Velthar was right about his species not tolerating cold well. His scales lost color and his movements became sluggish. Jiwoo noticed. She moved closer to him within the 12-foot boundary for the first time. You need warmth, she said. Human body temperature is higher than yours. Use it, Velthar hesitated. Being this close to Jiwoo triggered his instincts, but he was cold enough to override fear with practicality. He moved closer, and Jiwoo wrapped part of the thermal blanket around both of them. Thank you, Velthar said quietly. We're a pack now, Jiwoo replied. Pack means taking care of each other. The second and third days passed in a blur of hiking. The valley narrowed, forcing them to climb over rocks. Quinn struggled with the cold. June kept spirits up with constant chatter and jokes. Jiwoo led them steadily forward, always finding the safest path. On the fourth night, they heard howling in the distance. The indigenous predators. They're hunting, Velthar said, his predator instincts recognizing the sounds. Not close yet, but they know we're here. How long until they find us? Jun asked, his usual cheerfulness fading. Tomorrow, maybe. They're tracking our scent. Everyone looked at Jiwoo. She had become the unofficial leader through her actions, even though she never claimed the role. We keep moving, she said. Predators are cautious. They'll observe before attacking. If we stay together and show confidence, they'll hesitate. Show confidence? One of the students squeaked. How? Don't run. Don't show fear. Move with purpose. Jiwoo's voice was calm, steady. They're testing us. We show them we're not easy prey. The fifth day, the predators appeared. They were exactly as described, six-legged, covered in thick fur with eyes that glowed in the dim light. 3 of them shadowed the group from a distance, staying on the cliffs above. Jun watched them nervously. They're getting closer. They're curious, Jiwoo corrected. Keep walking. Don't make eye contact, but don't ignore them. Acknowledge their presence without challenge. How do you know this will work? Felthar asked. Because it's what we do on Earth. Respect predators, don't fear them. Fear makes you prey. Respect makes you another predator in their territory. The creatures followed them all day. Sometimes coming closer, sometimes fading back. It was a test, Jiwoo realized. The predators were assessing their group, determining if they were prey or fellow predators. That night they made camp near a large boulder that provided some protection. They built a fire using dried plants. The predators circled the camp at a distance, their eyes reflecting the firelight. Velthar was terrified. His instinct screamed at him. His species was apex on his homeworld, but here, outnumbered and in unfamiliar territory, he was potential prey. Jiwoo stood at the edge of their firelight. She didn't move aggressively. She simply stood, facing the direction where the largest predator waited in shadow. The creature had positioned itself as pack leader, the others deferring to it. The moon's predator stepped into the light. It was massive, easily twice the size of Jiwoo. Its eyes locked onto hers. The staring contest lasted minutes. No one in the group dared to breathe. This was the moment. Submit or challenge. Prey or predator, Jiwoo did neither. She acknowledged the creature's dominance in its territory, while simultaneously refusing to show submission. It was a delicate balance, a communication that transcended species. The creature's eyes narrowed. It tilted its head, processing this strange being that wasn't challenging but wasn't fleeing either. Then it did something unexpected. It sat down, still watching but no longer threatening. A test passed. The other 2 predators followed their leader's example, settling into resting positions. They would watch, but they wouldn't attack. Not tonight. Jiwoo returned to the fire. They've accepted us, she said quietly. We can rest. What just happened? Jun whispered. Communication, Jiwoo said. Not words, understanding. They wanted to know what we are. I showed them we're travelers, not invaders. Not prey, not competition, just passing through. Velthar stared at her with something like awe. You just negotiated with wild predators using nothing but body language. It's what humans do, Jiwoo said with a tiny shrug. We've been doing it for thousands of years on Earth. Every apex predator can understand another apex. It's instinct. The 6th day, the moon's predators left them alone. They had made their assessment. Group 12 was not worth the risk. By the evening of the 7th day, they reached the extraction point. A shuttle waited, along with Professor Yara and the medical team. Other groups had already arrived, looking exhausted but proud. Group 12 emerged from the wilderness. They were cold, tired, and hungry, but everyone was intact. Quinn's movements were slow from the cold. Velthar's scales were dull. But they had made it. Professor Yara's eyes widened when she saw them. You encountered the indigenous predators? Yes, Velthar confirmed. Jiwoo handled it. Handled it how? She talked to them, Jun said, grinning. Not with words, but they understood each other. As they boarded the shuttle, Velthar sat down next to Jiwoo for the first time. Not at 12 feet? Right next to her. She looked at him surprised. I understand now, Velthar said. The distance. It wasn't for you. It was for us. Yes, Jiwoo confirmed. You stayed back so we wouldn't have to choose between submission and challenge.